Hi, my name's Becky Sanchez, and I'm the curriculum specialist here at CDC. I've worked for decades as a teacher and as a curriculum specialist, and I'm happy to be with you today for this video about the infant and toddler studies. It would really be nice, in fact, you should have a copy of the winter study with you, and also the Mighty Minutes, the intentional teaching cards, and the highlights hello books and their matching book conversation cards with you before we begin the video. And perhaps you want to stop the video right now and get them. It would be a good idea. In the meantime, I would just like to review what all these materials are, very briefly. We have our Mighty Minutes, which is a deck of 100 cards, and these are very playful, joyful activities for the children to do. And when I say children, I mean infants all the way up to children that are 2 years old. In creative curriculum, we have the designations young infants, mobile infants, and then toddlers, and then twos. And sometimes in the video, I'll be talking about toddlers, but all the materials that we're going to use have adaptations for all 4 age levels or levels of development. So these are the Mighty Minute cards. They all appear by number, which is how you find them in the deck when you're using the study or any other creative curriculum materials. And they would tell you to locate by the number. In this case, this Mighty Minutes card is 01. It's the first one in the deck. On the front of the card, you typically have the version which is for the infants. And when you turn the card over on the back in the blue box, sometimes it's a small box, sometimes the box is very large, you will have the adaptation for the toddlers and the twos, for the older children. So once again, the front is typically for your youngest, and then the back is for the oldest students. And sometimes the back will give you 2, 3, 4 ways to mix it up and adapt the activity on the front for the older children to keep it fresh, to keep it joyful, to keep it lively. So this is your Mighty Minutes. There is a deck inside your crate with all your materials. In fact, it tucks into a space right behind the intentional teaching cards. So speaking of the intentional teaching cards, I'll show you one right now. There are 4 groups of intentional teaching cards in your crate. You have social emotional cards, and those are really all daily routines because these are ways that you interact with the children, that you engage with the children, and they are part of who you are as a teacher, what you say and what you do. And they cover basically the social emotional, all of the daily routines from dressing or diaper changing, going potty, eating, cleaning up after playtime, greeting the children when they arrive, saying goodbye to them when they leave, and many, many other scenarios that are just part of your daily routines. The P cards are the physical cards, and physical stands for gross motor and fine motor movement, and then also anything pertaining to the arts because they involve movement, particularly fine motor. For the visual arts, music and movement, reenacting maybe something that happened in a story that they just read with your older children, the toddlers and the twos, singing. These things are all the arts, and they're with a section in the crate for the intentional teaching cards classified as P. We also have the M cards, which are mathematics, and these are grouped together. And then they are followed in the crate by the LL cards, which LL stands for language and literacy. But for infant and toddler teachers, the LL is primarily a single L for language because you're constantly building the language capacity in the children and giving them the acquisition of language and then building actual language in them when you interact with them through language. Remember that they need to hear those million words, and they should be hearing a lot of them from you. So these are very heavily language rather than literacy. So those are our intentional teaching cards. And then the other component that is in the crate is the Highlights Hello books. And they're little books like this that are numbered on the back. This is number 14. And for each Hello book, there is a book conversation card that is also numbered. You can see this is number 14, and it pairs with the Hello book number 14. On the front of a book conversation card, there is a little blurb that you are to read to the children before you use the book. And typically there is some sort of a comment made about the cover of the book. In this case, we have a little boy with his teddy bear. And then there's also a hint of something to come in, a story, a poem, a find it, a game that's inside the book. When you open the book discussion card, just to review a little bit with you, you will have the 4 levels represented. We have guidance for sharing the Hello book with young infants, then guidance for sharing the book with mobile infants. These are infants on the move. Then guidance for sharing with toddlers, and finally with our oldest children in the infant toddler span, sharing with the twos. And then on the back of the card, directly on the back, are activities that could go home for the parents to extend anything that you did with the book and the book discussion card today. They can extend at home. They are designed so that this book goes home with the parents, but I read them over, and actually on your weekly tips that you send home, or if there's another way that you communicate with the parents, many of these transfer to an activity that can be a really nice at-home standalone activity that the parents can do with their child without the Hello book. And we'll talk about some of those later. Also, if we just turn to this for another minute here, for each selection, the guidance will tell you what to say before you read, let's say, the opening story, during reading the story, and then after you read the story. In addition, for the little ones, so the 2 pages that have to do with infants, the first 2, there is a lot of direction for you about how to hold the infant, how to position the infant, perhaps where to touch the infant during the reading. And all these things are not random. They're designed by the professional creative curriculum designers, and they will produce results in growing the child. And then with the toddlers and the twos guidance, those 2 pages, you will have a lot of direction as to motions, or what to maybe, when to have the child stand or pretend that they fall down, or when to have them sitting, what gestures they can use, and things like this that would enhance the reading. So the guidance is for reading, but the guidance also is for a lot of physicality involving you and the child. And all of these things will enhance each selection that you read. So this is your book discussion card, and you have a set of them, and there are just as many as there are Hello books. These typically begin with a story, and the story is typically 4 pages. Then there typically is a poem, and then there is always in the center of the book an activity called a Find It, where you and the child will find 3 or 4 things together and discuss them, describe them. And then after the Find It, we always move to another story. And at the very end of the Hello highlight, there is what is called a poem. Also, with the Hello highlight, you may have noticed, and I'll just hold up the story, Where Has Ava Gone, on your left-hand side of the title page for each of these selections. They also will give you a tip on what you can do before, during, or after the reading to enhance it. And that's in addition to what is in the book conversation card. So you have a lot of support. There is a correlating piece for this in the preschool. They have read aloud books, and they have book discussion cards. And I always tell them that the book discussion card is like an Alexa or a Siri, except it's in print. But my point is that you're never alone. You don't have to think about what you do with this Hello book, because Creative Curriculum with the book discussion card has designed everything for you to help you know what to do and what to say, how to hold the baby, or how to position the toddler. So it's a really, really nice piece in Creative Curriculum. So those are the parts that we have. Those are in your crate. That's the taller crate that has the handholds. These materials are not in the long, flat boxes that you have with Creative Curriculum. So hopefully by now you have the winter study with you, and you also have the Mighty Minutes, the intentional teaching cards, and the 3 Hello books, and the 3 book conversation cards that go with week 1 in the winter study, because that's what we'll be working with. Now, we say that this is a study, the winter study. This is a study that's based on Creative Curriculum. And what this means is that the study has been designed. It's not random. Everything that is here for purpose, and everything connects. Each at a glance has a focus for the teacher, which is really nice, because sometimes we think of other things that we can add in, or we're online and we see things that catch our eye, and before you know it, we're off focus. I was a teacher for 40 years, and it's so easy to go off focus or become activity driven, and then you tend to forget where you were in the beginning. So each week of the winter study has a teacher focus, and that's designed to do just what it says, keep you focused. If I were doing the winter study, if I were one of you and I were teaching, I would also need to have the focus so that I could always be sure of what my focus was and make sure that all 5 days of the study I stayed within that focus. There is joy-based play in the winter study, and there's also learning. And the learning is always in the form of exploration and discovery that the children are doing, and you are guiding that. We also know that this is based on Creative Curriculum because you are not going to be telling the children about winter. You're not going to be explaining things about winter to them. Instead, what you are doing by using the study as it's designed, you're giving the children opportunities to explore, to discover, and to investigate. And it's all done within the context of winter. They're not discovering or investigating any old thing or everything. Everything is tied to winter. And finally, we know that this is based on Creative Curriculum because the topic of the study, winter, is part of the children's world. If you live in Western Pennsylvania, as these children do, winter is part of your world. It's part of your life. So that's why winter is one of the studies. And I think just recently you may have completed the study called Fall. And likewise, that was part of their world too, the fall of the year. So all the things that we just went over about the study and why that's evidence of being based on Creative Curriculum would be true of any infant toddler study that you'll be doing because they are all based on Creative Curriculum. So let's go to page 2 of our study. Page 1 will be the cover. So let's go to page 2. And I'd like to read the preface to the study to you. The preface reads as follows. The adult's role is not to teach, but to observe and reflect on what the infants or toddlers are experiencing and how they learn, and then to support the process through interactions, the relationship with the child, and providing the experiences in an environment that contributes to the child's success. In high-quality infant-toddler programs, the interests of the child and the belief that each child has a curriculum are what drive the practice. And that's on page 2. The quote at the end is from an authority in infant-toddler development whose name is J. Ronald Lawley. And what we're really talking about here is the same thing we're going to be talking about through this whole video. The idea that the caring adult-child relationship is the basis for all infant and for all toddler brain development. And out of that caring relationship comes the teacher's sincere desire to support the children in the experiences and to create an environment in the classroom that supports all of these learning experiences and will contribute to the child's success. So it all begins, as Barb always tells us, with the child-adult relationship. And each child in your classroom has interests, and therefore, because they're all interested in a little different, things, or in very different things, each child is a curriculum onto himself or onto herself. Think of each child in your classroom and imagine that there's a little curriculum bottled up inside the child waiting to come out. And that's what is a fact, and that is what will happen with the winter study. Therefore, winter, the study, is designed with a bundle of daily opportunities for the children to explore and for them to reveal their individual curriculum to you. So let's go to page 3 now. This is called Getting Started. And this page does exactly what it says. It helps you get started. If you have done studies already with your toddlers, or infants and toddlers, without reading the entire study, in other words, without reading this whole packet, then you've cheated yourself out of the pages designed to support you, and you will not have an overall understanding of the entire study and how it fits together. So in order to model how we look at all these pages and read them, I'll be going over them with you today in the video. So the Getting Started page in every study always poses the question, why investigate, and then whatever the topic of the study is. In this case, it's winter, but you may have seen why investigate balls, why investigate boxes, why investigate fall. Very soon you'll see why investigate sticky things, and many other studies to come after that. In this case, it's winter. So if we look at this, this is the logic or the rationale behind using winter for the study. Toddlers love snow. They watch the snow fall to the ground. They play outside in the snow. They sit down in snow. They make balls of snow. They lie down in the snow, letting snowflakes fall and tickle their faces. Toddlers quickly discover that snow is made of water, and it comes from weather conditions being just right for snow. They love to find animal tracks in the snow and to watch birds feeding on seeds. They might wonder where the grass has gone, where the flowers have gone. The enduring appeal of winter is evident in how toddlers love all things winter from both sides of the window, inside and out. This study shows how to use toddlers' interests in winter to help them explore the social studies and the science concepts, and to use skills with language, literacy, math, technology, and the arts as they investigate winter. Then you will see 2 questions in a box, and these are always on this page in Creative Curriculum. And These two questions are, how do children in your room show their interest in winter? What do they say? What do they show you about winter? And this just is not when you're getting started. This will be threaded through the study because remember, everything is built on exploration, investigation, discovery, and taken from the child's interests. So that's why, how do the children in your room show their interest in winter? They're showing you all this little individual curriculum that they have inside themselves. And then what do they show you or say about winter? And this is your engagement and your interaction with them. So this is your getting started. Next, on page 4, we have a letter to the families. And this is always in any creative curriculum study. This letter does quite a few things, and Barb's suggestion is that you put this in the mailboxes for the parents at least 1 week before you begin the new study. So what the letter will do is inform the parents that the winter study is coming up, explains to them why the winter study is appropriate for their children, ask them to donate or to lend items that are in this box that are about winter, and they most likely would have at home. There is rarely anything that has to be purchased. Most of the time, these are more or less recycled things about winter. And it also gives the parents tips about how to engage with their children about winter, maybe looking out the window at home or when they're outside or when they're driving in the car and the children are looking out the windows of the vehicle. For example, what you can do at home, spend time with your child outside in winter, talk about the weather, whether the snow is heavy or light, and if water is turning into ice when you're outside. Discuss what your child should wear in order to play outside. Or if you're already outside, discuss with your child what they're wearing as far as winter clothing items go, because that's really big in the study. So this section is always tips, what you can do at home and what you can talk about at home with your children. So this is the letter to the families. And once again, going into the mailboxes a week before the study begins would be good. If you want to do it a tad earlier, it's fine. Then page 5 is always called the length of. In this case, it's the length of the winter study. And this is a nice page to let you see how long the study will be if you're not extending or lengthening the study, which we are not going to do at CDC this particular year. So if we count the days for the first at a glance, the second one, the third, the fourth, and then the 2 celebration days, the winter study would be 22 days on the calendar. So this is just a nice thing to do. This is in the preschool studies too, so I replicated that for you. And then I'm going to move to the rest of the study. These are done in landscape style. Our next page, which is page 6, is called Beginning the Study. And first we look at introducing the topic. And there's always a very brief angle or tip for you as to how we're going to introduce it. So you will be telling the children that you're going to be exploring the season of winter together, and you are going to do this by giving the children many, many opportunities to explore winter. And the same list that was in the parent letter is copied here again for you. And this just gives you a list of items that you can collect and have on hand in the room to enhance the study or to use on specific days in the study. The reason why you need to gather the items is because each day in the study, you will have to really plan to have the items on hand. And I would recommend planning a week ahead. And today, when we move to the second part of the video, we're going to be planning a week together. And every item here helps the children to explore and discover. And for example, they can see photographs of winter that are on the list. They can touch, taste, smell frozen ice cubes. They can pick up winter boots, feel how heavy they are. They can touch them, they can try them on. So everything on this list is sensory, and it opens up sensory exploration to the children through their hearing, through seeing, through touching, through feeling, through tasting, and I'm leaving one out, smelling. They're going to use their five senses in exploring these items and working through the winter study. So it's sensory oriented using those five senses. And this is a good point in the video to encourage you to take photographs of the children during the study and also to take video. And if you're an infant teacher, you can use the photographs and the videos for the celebration days. If you have toddlers and twos, you definitely will. Plus, you will have other constructions and artwork and charts and tallies that you'll be using. And if you have these things, they can be used in your documentation in TSG. So we highly recommend photographs and videos. Another thing to mention to you is all the artwork that you're asked to do during the study is open-ended artwork. What this means is that you are going to give opportunities to the children to interact with the materials. You are not going to do the art for the children. You're not going to finish it. You're not going to determine when it's done. The child will handle the materials perhaps, or simply look at them if the child is an infant. If the child is older, a toddler or two, they will be interacting with the materials, and they will determine what they're going to do, for example, with a piece of white chalk and a piece of dark blue paper, and how many times that white chalk and the paper will connect. And they will determine when it's finished, and they will determine to you, they will tell you what it is that they've made with the chalk and the paper. So that's open-ended art. We're not doing arts and crafts, we are not doing projects, and we are not doing artwork where all of the art looks alike. This is because it's child-led, it's not teacher-led. Another tip to mention is that when you are doing a study, it's best not to put everything out at one time. Sometimes there's a tendency to go through all the study and look at all the winter things that you need and put them all out at once. But you'll want to put them out as the study directs you to put them out, which is gradually, because that really keeps the interest of the children. At this time, as you see on page 7, we are not going to be extending or lengthening the study. And when we do move to that, this page will help you, and Barb and I will also help you with lengthening or extending the study. So far, we've overviewed all the supports for the study to help you. And the big message has been that this is designed for the children to explore and to investigate and for you to support them. So now let's do an overview of each at a glance. And at a glance, sometimes we like to say a week, but I've trained myself not to call them a week because in the preschool creative curriculum, there are at a glances that are only 3 days and 4 days. They're not always 5 days. So let's turn to page 8, and you will now be on the tables. And this is the first at a glance. The teacher focus is clearly stated, exploring winter clothing that is worn outside with the children. So that's your focus for all 5 days. Each day has an area in your classroom to emphasize. Often it's the area where the winter things will be displayed or where the winter things will be used. Sometimes it is where the large group activity takes place. So you have to pay attention so you can plan for that area daily. The first at a glance then is about exploring winter clothes. On page 13, we have the second at a glance, if you'd like to turn to it. On page 13, you'll see that this now is called Investigation 1. And it's because in creative curriculum, the first week is always exploring the topic, and then the second week or the second at a glance goes to Investigation 1. The third at a glance will go to Investigation 2, and so on. and that is simply how they are designed. On page 18, you have the third at a glance, which is investigation 2, and the children will be investigating animals that like winter. And on page 22, you have the fourth and last at a glance. It's investigation 3, which is about exploring a winter festival. And then please notice that on page 26, we have a 2-day celebration. And there's always a celebration at the end of a creative curriculum study. It's very tiny, at a glance, only 2 days. And you are celebrating everything that the children have discovered, have explored, and have learned during the study. For older children, their open-ended artwork, their constructions, charts and tallies, things like this would be in the room. And for the infants, we would have photographs and videos of them during the study. Okay, so what we've done so far is overview the whole study, and you should have a pretty good feel for everything that is here. The only thing that I did not share with you is that on page 28, there are some additional ideas for open-ended art for winter with the children. And then on page 29, there is a list of infant, toddler books about winter. And some of these are board books, and some of these are typical storybooks, but they all have to do with winter. And a good many of them have to do with animals outside in winter. These have all been purchased for you, and each infant or toddler room will be getting a set of these winter books. They're all in print at this time. I know that can change, but at this time, they're all in print. So you've kind of been inside the study, and you've seen the opportunities for exploration and investigation. And I want to talk to you a little bit about your planning time. During your planning time, you should list the items that have to be ordered, if there are any. I don't believe there are any in the first week of the study that we're going to be talking about, but you have to know what you have to order. Secondly, you have to know what you have to gather. Anybody teaching creative curriculum is a gatherer. Creative curriculum teacher is always gathering things to use. And you do that so that you're organized and you have everything ready to go. And then the third thing that we always do with creative curriculum is that we have to practice. And I know that these books don't have a lot of script in them, but you still have to practice reading. I'm showing you the first story out loud, and you have to practice reading the poem. Slip and slide. You have to practice looking at the Find It page, because you always have to be ready for what you're going to be describing and discussing with the children. And you have to train yourself, give yourself the little pep talk during your planning time that you're going to linger over these illustrations and make sure you give the children enough time to look at them, because it grows their brain when they look at illustrations in books. And secondly, they will engage with the illustrations. They'll touch, they'll point, and if they're older children that have language, they will be talking to you. So it's very, very important. You have to plan for all of those things. You also have to practice the rhymes, the songs, the chants on the Mighty Minutes cards. And you might feel silly, but you sit there in the planning room and you sing them out loud and you do the gestures. So you're practicing, you're making yourself very self-confident with the Mighty Minutes. You also have to practice any of the poems, songs, chants, or finger plays that are listed in the actual teaching guide. And it will give you a better rollout with the children, and it will give you more emotional space for you to be excited about the song, the chant, the dance, the game. And if you're excited, then the children will be excited. So now we're going to move into the second part of the video, which is planning for the first at a glance. So let's turn to page 8. We've been there before, but if we go to page 8, you'll notice that this first at a glance goes on for about 5 pages. And The reason that it does is this. If you were a preschool teacher, you would have the at a glance, and you would also have a book that's called the teaching guide. You have a teaching guide for each study. So if you have day one in the at a glance, as you have here, day one, if you were a preschool teacher, you would have 2 pages that you would have to read about day one. So if you have an at a glance that's 5 days, which you do have, you would have 10 pages of reading in the teaching guide for that 5-day at a glance. So what I did for you was I did not write a separate teaching guide. Instead, in this column 1 that goes down 4 or 5 pages, I have written your teaching guide right into the column. So it's merged together. You have your teaching guide, description for the day, merged with the at a glance for the day. And this puts everything at your fingertips. You don't have to go back and forth between a book that you have to read or extra pages to read and the at a glance. It's there together. So you might hear preschool teachers in your building, if you have preschool teachers, talk about their teaching guide for trees or their teaching guide for the building study. But you can just say to them, well, when Becky designed the toddler studies, she put the teaching guide into the at a glance. And they will be very jealous because this is more convenient than what they have to use. I promise you that's true. So in the area to emphasize in the toddler study, this runs across the top of the page. And we first have that you're going to be gathering photographs, and you're also going to be collecting books about winter. And that continues for the whole week, and it runs through the whole study. So it's almost as if you never have enough photographs about winter, and you really never have enough books about winter, because this is ongoing. Next, you have what is called your large group activities. And this is where on day one, you're going to be looking at photographs of winter with the children. I picked up a catalog this morning at the post office before I left home, and I turned and I saw children on a toboggan in the winter. And then I turned the page, and there is maybe it's not there, here it is, color photograph of children tubing, snow tubing. So this is the type of thing you'll be looking at with the children, activities that are done outside in the winter. And some of them won't be as much fun, like shoveling snow or scraping ice off a windshield, but there's all kinds of winter activities. And you will be discussing these photos with them. I urge you to slow down, linger over the photographs, let the children engage with them, point to things, say things to you, pick up on the child's lead, and discuss with the child based on what they have said to you or what they have pointed to. Maybe they don't have language, but they certainly can point. Next, if we follow with day one, you're going to move into a game. We're still on page 8. And you're going to do a game with them, which is gross motor, where you're going to be imitating one motion at a time, things that people do outside in the winter. So your motions may be shoveling snow. You may be doing motions of scraping ice. You may be doing motions of ice skating, or you may be doing motions of skiing. And you'll do this with the children, and they will imitate you. Hopefully, some of the winter photographs in your room are going to connect to motions that you're doing in the game, so that if you do shoveling snow and they are doing that motion with you, you all can then look at a photograph of somebody shoveling snow. Also, don't forget that you have a tablet, and you can find a YouTube video, or you can find photographs online of people doing the motions that you're going to be doing in the game, where you imitate things that people do outside. And then also for your older children, when you take them outside for gross motor, they could imitate a lot of these motions when they are outside, or they're outside in actual snow. Then we have the poem on page 9. It is snowing. And you can add hand motions to the poem. It is snowing, falling down, falling down. It is snowing. It is snowing all around, all around. So I'm sure that you can think of hand motions to use for the falling snow and then for the snow all around. And if it happens to be snowing outside at the very time that you do the poem with the children, it'd be nice to take them to the window and look at the falling snow. And you can do the poem again right at the window while you're watching the falling snow. And most likely, once again, you have a photograph in your room, or there is a storybook with illustrations of snow falling. So we want to connect everything we can to everything we do. So now we're on page 10, and we're still on day 1. And now we're going to move to the Hello book, number 15. When we look at that book, we see a little boy on the cover. He has a snowsuit on. He has boots. He has a hat and mittens. And then there's also snow in the picture. So you want to make a big deal out of talking about these things, explaining them, having the children point to them. And then you'll want to move and highlight the fact that he has a zipper on his snowsuit. And at the top of the snowsuit, there's a snap, because we're going to be doing something shortly with closures on winter clothes. So at a minimum, we know he has a zipper and he has a snap. So this is very worth pointing out. And you want to make sure that you have the book conversation card 15 with you, because it goes with this particular Hello book. And this is only one of 2 books, I'm sorry to say, out of 24 that have something about winter in them. Winter is not big in the Hello books. They're basically summer-based, maybe spring, but very much summer-based. And that can be because they're used across our nation as well as around the world. So perhaps warm weather is more prevalent when you look at the whole picture. The book conversation will give you the little blurb, as I said earlier, to read aloud, and linger on the cover with the children in the way that I described, and don't rush, and allow the children time always to interact with the cover and to look at the illustrations. First and foremost, because it grows their brain. Secondly, because you see what their interest is going to be. Once you see their interest, then you can take the lead and you can run with it. The blurb on the side also mentions slipping and sliding on ice, and it mentions an otter, the animal, the otter, slipping and sliding on ice. So we know that that's going to be coming up. So we also need to select which level you're going to use. Are you going to do the young infant, the older infant, the toddler, or the twos? And then once you know which one you're going to do, you're going to be reading over the guidance on whichever page fits your children. So this is all very good to use in planning. Just kick back and read it, soak it in, read it again, and be very sure of what you're going to be doing with the Hello book. We already know that allowing the children to look at the illustrations grows their brain. But did you know that the simple sound of your voice reading aloud to the children causes good chemicals to be released in the children's brains, and that those brain chemicals help in their self-regulation? So you're building social emotional self-regulation in them by reading. And did you know that when you read to the children, you're building a positive adult-child relationship? And you're also creating the foundation to make these children lifetime readers, which is very, very important. So everything you do with the Hello books to read them, and also with the group of winter storybooks you have, super important for your children. How you read is important. Aim for voice expression, going very slowly sometimes, repeating, showing the illustrations, giving the children eye contact, looking at them. When you look the children in the eye, it also releases good chemicals in their brain. So it's very important to have eye contact. Also, giving the children time to look, point, touch, or say something. This all supports the interactions you're going to have with them. So during your planning time, you must read aloud. Reading aloud gives you self-confidence. You learn to see where you might imitate an animal who's talking. You might do animal sounds. It might show you where you're going to slow down or even whisper, and certainly where you're going to touch the child during the reading. So we read aloud in our planning time. We think of ideas to help make the reading selection fit our children. We also choose which page we're going to use in the Hello highlights. And then we notice that we're going to be doing something before we even begin to read the selection, because for every selection, there is a before reading segment. So if we look at Walk to Daddy, which is our first selection, and if you would look at them across all 4 age levels, all 4 of them emphasize the rhyming words in Hello Daddy, also the expression upsy daisy when she falls down and she gets back up. And there also is some positioning of the child to imitate what is happening in the story, with the little girl taking some wobbly steps to walk to her daddy and then falling down. So everything that you're told to do on the book conversation card is for a reason. You know, none of this is accidental. None of it is random. Everything is to be done to produce the maximum development and growing of the child's brain. So let's go back to day 1 and on page 10. So we've just finished planning for the cover and the first selection. And now, if we've done the cover with the little boy in the snowsuit wearing books, we will see that we have intentional teaching cards and Mighty Minutes listed. If we look at the first one, Let's Practice Dressing, which is P15, this connects to the little boy on the cover, because with this one, the children will simply be looking at some winter clothing items on a table. Some will have zippers, some will have Velcro, some will have snaps, some will have buttons. And you will be showing them the different closures, and they will be exploring how these different clothing items close. And that's why I told you a few minutes ago to be sure to emphasize the snap and the zipper of the little boy, because you can connect that to the clothing items that are on the table with this intentional teaching card. So you're starting to see everything connects, everything has a purpose. Next, the Mighty Minutes card, Mighty Minute 4, Let's Put Your Pants On, can be done anytime that you're putting clothing on the child, but we do have winter clothing items that we put on to go outside and also to go home, and this Mighty Minute card can be used. The front better fits the infant, the back better fits the toddler. And then the Mighty Minute card, 8:30, which is number 27. This is a nice little verse, and I chose it because there's a line about putting on your boots and your coat to go outside to, quote unquote, prance in the snowflakes. And once again, that fits this, and that fits this. So everything is fitting together. So if you see that, good. That's great that you're making that connection. Now, I did that as much as I could in all the studies I designed. Sometimes you can't, because, as I said, there's only 2 books that have to do with winter. But right now, we're heavily connecting winter. And then Mighty Minutes 50, you help me, I help you, has to do with, for example, I put my sleeve in my jacket, then you put your sleeve in your jacket. You help me to do that, I help you. You help me zip my coat, I help you zip your coat. So it's reciprocal, but it also keys into winter clothing items, which is a big theme here. And you may choose the intentional teaching cards and the Mighty Minutes in this section based on the interests of the children. And there are several listed. Or I would urge you to remember that doing these can take anywhere from seconds to a minute. So they're not time intensive. it would be pretty hard for you to say, I don't have enough time to do more than one mighty minute, or I don't have enough time for a more intentional teaching card. When you think of all the time that the children are with you until they're picked up and how little time it takes to do these, you do indeed have time to do more than one of each. You have time to do quite a few. So far, we've looked at one intentional teaching card and then 3 mighty minutes. And on page 11, in the At a Glance, you'll have the directions now for reading the story, Walk to Daddy. It's followed by the poem, Slip and Slide with the otter. And then we have a really cool thing happen. Intentional teaching card, math, number 14. And this is where you have a ramp and the children can slide a block or a little person, one of the little people. I don't mean a real little person. One of the little people, or an ice cube, or a vehicle, or a stuffed animal down the ramp. And that motion will imitate the otter sliding down his icy ramp, otherwise known as the hill, and landing in the pond. So once again, you see the connection between M14 and the otter slipping and sliding. And then you can continue reading the rest of the Hello book if you would like to. The rest of the book is actually in the At a Glance for tomorrow, day 2. But children love repetition, so it's okay to read on. Keep in mind that when you're reading on, you're using the guidance for before, during, and after for each selection. If you choose not to read on with this Hello Highlights book, you can pick up a storybook that is in the room about winter. You also can look at photographs. You can look at more clothing items. You can look out the window and look at winter as it's happening outside the window. You can do the game again. You can do the Snow is Falling poem with all the hand gestures. And we know they love to repeat, and you surely have enough there for repetition until day 1 would end at CDC with the winter study. Okay, so to wrap it up for day 1, if you think that you have 3 papers, one is for ordering, one for gathering, one for practicing. For gathering, I would list all the winter photos, the winter clothes, and the other clothes with closures. I would list number 15, the Hello book, the book conversation card number 15. I would also list Mighty Minutes 4, 27, and 50. And then the intentional teaching cards P15 and M14. And then for practicing, it would be everything that I just said, and you would add the game and the poem from day 1 in the At a Glance. So now you know everything you need to gather, and now you'll be organized, and now you know what you need to practice so that you'll be very confident and you can create the best learning situation for the children. And you can add the Mighty Minute that's listed at the end. If you notice in the At a Glances, at the very bottom, there's an additional Mighty Minute at the end. And this is protocol and creative curriculum. They always give you a Mighty Minute at the end of the At a Glance for transitions. And the one that is listed for day 1 is called Mighty Minute 20, Please Find. And with Please Find, you give the children instructions, if they can, if they're moving, to find something that is red, or find something that's soft, or find something that's an animal, and bring it to you. Of course, you would probably have them find things that are connected to winter to bring to you. So with that, let's go to day 2. Let's go to page 13, which is day 2 in the study. And for this day, I see that I'm going to need my winter photographs again, and I'm going to be using weather that we can see through the window. So hopefully you have winter weather outside, and you're going to have paper and marker ready to go so that when the children tell you winter things that they see outside, you can write that down with the child's name, which is a good thing to have out on the celebration days, All parents love to come into the classrooms and look for what their child contributed. So if you have their names, that helps. You will need a bare tree branch, and you'll also need something white that can be snow for the tree branch, whether it's white Play-Doh, or maybe white tissue paper squares that are going to be glued onto the bare tree branch. And you'll need a little bit of bird seed too. For the large group activity, we're going to be exploring outside, and we're going to be connecting that to the bare winter tree branch. And after we put snow on the tree branch and the children examine the bird seed and what animal might eat this, then one of the times that you actually do go outside, if it's warm enough to go out that day, they can take the bird seed and put it outside for the birds. Then we're going to be back to the Hello Book number 15, and we're now at the place where we're going to be doing the Find It. And this has a truck, a stroller, and a car. All of these things move, some more quickly than others, and they all have wheels. And then that will lead us to the Mighty Minutes number 39, which is Motion Magic, about things that move. And we have the Jack Be Nimble, Jack Be Quick rhyme, and the children will be moving by jumping. The children don't have wheels, but they're moving like everything in the Find It, where all of these vehicles were moving. Then we're going to be going to Our Names, Our Things, an intentional teaching card. This is LL34, and you will have to have already prepared or up in your room the children's name cards with their photographs. And so this is my card, this is my name, this is my photograph, and that all is me. So our names are things, and that's what you're connecting to with LL34. And this is also a daily routine. You're constantly working with those name and photograph cards. It's not just for intentional teaching card LL34. You're always showing them their name, saying their name again and again, the photograph, and making sure that they know that that represents them. MM44, Jack and Jill, is a Mighty Minute card that explores spatial relationships and positional words like up and down. And then when you go back to the picture book with my picture, you have the child looking out the window. And we've also had on day 2, we've had the Mighty Minute number 15 called Window Conversations, where you look out the window just like the child is looking out the window, and you discuss and describe what you and the child are seeing out the window. And if the little boy had somebody with him, he would be doing that too. So this Mighty Minute card connects to my picture in the Hello book. And then when you turn the page and the little boy goes outside with his mother, you can see there's a lot of winter here to connect to. And also, I hope you notice everybody's wearing winter clothes, which is something that we've been talking about yesterday with the winter study, and then that continues today. And this is also something that a parent can do at home with the child, go outside, talk about winter, take a picture of their child outside in the snow, and it will be just like the story in the Hello book. And then the intentional teaching card SC26, dressing for the weather, involves winter clothing items that would be worn in winter to be able to go outside. So that connects. The children can pretend that they're putting the items on, or they can examine the items that they're going to be putting on. They also can pretend that they're wearing the items, that they are outside shoveling or playing. They don't necessarily have to go outside with the winter clothing on. So this is a nice connection to make to everything to date in the study. And that M15 window conversations, looking out the window, reinforces everything. And it's just a nice Mighty Minutes card to use at any time. Window conversations. Also, Mighty Minute 27 that's listed, 8:30. That's a repeat from another day, from yesterday. And the Mighty Minute 88, just like me, is a card where you do a motion and then they do a motion. So if you're doing a motion like you're walking up the stairs, then they do that motion. If you do a motion like you're looking out the window, then they do that motion. So we're even to the point where one Mighty Minutes card can connect to another Mighty Minutes card. And then also we have the poem in that book, Just Like Me, which is about the mommies and the babies. And we start off with, a mother dog with a puppy, frog with a tadpole, cat with a kitten, and then a mommy with a baby. And it's a nice one to do, and the book conversation card gives you ideas about what to do before, during, and after reading Just Like Me with the mommies and the babies. Also, on day 2, we are going to be having, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong page here. On day 2, okay, I turned too far. Weather permitting, you may be able to go outside, and also that would involve taking the bird seat outside. If it's a day that's too cold to go outside, then of course you won't be taking the bird seat outside that day. All of the Mighty Minutes and the intentional teaching cards connect to going outside and wearing winter clothes. As always, you can make choices, but I just want to remind you that you do have enough time to do all of them because none of them take very long to do. We're sometimes talking about less than a minute, and sometimes we're talking at the most maybe a couple minutes, and it's always until the child loses interest, and then that's when it's over. We have Mighty Minute 72, What's in the Bag, as a transitional card, and you could have a bag and you could have winter items inside the bag or photographs of winter. You could have an ice scraper in there. You could have a small winter shovel or a plain winter shovel. You could have hat, you could have mittens, the things that connect to winter. And then the children try to guess what you're going to pull out of the bag. And it's the Mighty Minutes card that's a lot of fun. We also have that same card in preschool, and they're never too old to enjoy that card. So that ends day 2. Once again, you would pull all these Mighty Minutes cards, intentional teaching cards, and you would practice them. And you would also look at day 2 and make sure that you know what you're going to do with the bare branch. And if you want to use squares of white tissue paper to glue on for snow, then you have that ready to go. You're not cutting up white tissue paper while the children are waiting for something to do. You have to have that cut up during your planning time. So let's move to day 3 now of the At a Glance. So we're back to page 8 again for day 3, and we continue with the winter photographs, the winter storybooks, and the winter clothing items. So those things are continuing. Today, it would be a really good idea to make sure you have a winter hat, scarf, and mittens, because we're going to be dressing a snowman. So the day 3 column will give you the approach that you're going to take. You'll talk about these winter clothing items. You'll let the children touch them, explore them, see what they're enchanted with, what they want to spend some time looking at further, and take their lead. And then you'll also talk about building a snowman. Hopefully you have a photograph that you can turn to. And then from that discussion, description, or storybook in your room about building a snowman, you'll then transition to a flannel board, and they will build a snowman with the 3 round circles on the flannel board, and then also dress the snowman on the flannel board. From there, we have put mittens on the snowman. We've already showed them a mitten, and now we're going to just show them one mitten, and you want to discuss it and show them how, you put your hand into a mitten and where the thumb goes in, where the fingers go in. And then in the at a glance, you have the mitten song, where they talk about the thumb in place, the fingers in place inside the mitten. And there are motions that you can have, and you can repeat this. And then we go to the mitten poem about mittens being warm, they're grand, they're like shoes for my hands. It's a very brief one that can be done over and over again. They love repetition. These are playful, they're joyful, and they just beg for you to repeat them. And after that, we would be moving to book 14, which is my next folder right here. With this book, 14, we have a little boy on the cover with Teddy. And the blurb that we're going to read from the book conversation card lets us know that we're going to have to look for Teddy, that Teddy's going to be lost, or maybe at the least Teddy's going to be playing peekaboo, and we must peek under things to find where Teddy or Teddy Bear is. And intentional teaching card, right where it belongs, SE07, picks up on the idea that the little boy has blocks and other toys. There's a toy chest there for cleanup time. And of course, everybody cleans up in your room and you put things back where they belong. And this is a daily routine. You can do this several times a day. You certainly do it every day. Clean up, putting things away, and it will connect to number 14. So that's a nice intentional teaching card to use. Mighty Minute 59 is called Can You Do This? And this reinforces putting things away. So let's say you pick up a block using the little verse, you put it away, then the child picks up a block and puts one away. So it's like, can you clean up like I can? Can you do this? And connecting to cleaning up that the little boy does. Then you move to reading the story, Where is Teddy? And you'll use the book discussion card for the developmental level. Are you one of the infant levels? Are you one of the toddler levels or the twos? And it's a 4-page story. And then, of course, when you're reading this, Teddy's been hiding and then he can be found. So when we connect LL56, where did it go? We're looking for something that's hidden and trying to find where it is. And also the Mighty Minute that is listed, Mighty Minute 65, peek at you. You're peeking maybe under a blanket or under something to look for the missing item for the thing that you're looking for, which is very much like what happens in the story, Looking for Teddy. And then there's a choice for you. You can repeat from yesterday, intentional teaching card SE6. This is how we get dressed from yesterday. Remember, your children love repetition, and you already have all that winter clothing in your room. And then the next intentional teaching card, SE13, has to do with looking for toes. And this is part of getting dressed. But looking for toes, we put toes into shoes, we put toes into boots and winter boots, and that's going to be coming up very quickly. Mighty Minutes, 04, which we already did yesterday, Put Your Pants On, is a repeat, and that can be done at any time. There's a connection. And then we also have Mighty Minutes 84, Fiddly Fingers. And this works with the 1-2 buckle my shoe rhyme, which children love. And the difference between this and the preschool is that when the infant toddlers do it, they use the fingers on one hand to do the whole rhyme. And they even get to 9, 10, the favorite line in the whole thing, 9-10, a big fat hen, using their hand. And they will be clapping two hands together for the big fat hen. But this is Fiddly Fingers. It's done with the fingers on one hand. Really cute, Mighty Minutes. And then always at the bottom of the At a Glance, you have your Mighty Minutes for transitions. For day 2, it's called 94 Detailed Descriptions. And this is where the teacher describes something in detail so that the children can find it. So for today, for your planning purposes, you have quite a few Mighty Minutes, intentional teaching cards to plan together. And to make sure that you feel comfortable with doing. You also have the cover and the Where is Teddy story in the Hello Highlights number 14 and the number 14 discussion card. And there's a lot to practice here. Remember, for, during, and after questions and activities for the story, looking for Teddy. And then also, if you're going to read any additional winter storybooks that are in your room, you'll want to practice them so that you're in control and you feel very self-confident with them on day 3. And remember, especially if you have infants, the book discussion card gives you a lot of tips on how to hold the infant during the reading of Hello Teddy. On the flip side, the book conversation cards will give you tips on what to have the toddlers actually imitate that the child is doing in the story, looking for Teddy. So that's it for day 3, and we're ready for day 4 in the At a Glance. So we need to go back again to page 8. You probably already know that. So on day 4, now you're going to make sure that you have a bin of winter accessories in the dramatic play area of the room. And then you're going to be showing the children various winter boots. And these can be the children's boots, or these can be boots that you've brought in from maybe Lost and Found, or they're your boots, or my nifty catalog here. There's no shortage of winter boots that you can find in winter catalogs these days. And you want to discuss them, let them touch them and describe them, ask them how they think they would put these boots on, how would they fasten them, how would they stay on their feet, and let them engage with the boots and take the lead from the children. Maybe they're fascinated by Velcro, maybe it's a zipper, maybe it's the fact that there's no fastening on the boot and they wonder how they will stay on. It might be the color, it might be the material or the trim that they're enchanted with, and you want to take their lead for what you will be discussing with them. And we go back and repeat the intentional teaching card 26, SC 26, dressing for the weather, because winter boots would be a big part of dressing for the winter weather. And then we have a little play here where you're going to have a tray of blue water, and you're going to put the little plastic people in the tray. This is all on page 9. And then you're going to give the children cotton balls. Maybe you've cut them up to make them smaller already, or maybe you have little balls of white tissue paper rolled up, and they're going to be dropping a snowstorm, falling snow on top of the little people. And then the snow is going to go into the blue water, and you'll let the snow pile up around the little people. And of course, describing what is happening with the snow, the blue water, and the little people. Take your lead again from the children. What are they observing? What are they noticing? What do they want to show you that's happening in the tray of blue water? We're also going to have a song that's called, it starts on page 9 and continues on page 10. It's called We Dress Like That, and it's done to the tune of Head and Shoulders. And it involves boots, of course, jackets, scarf, and hat, and those are the things that we wear outside in mitten weather. And of course, we worked on mittens yesterday. Um, and the scarf and the hat. In wintertime, we dress like that: boots, jacket, scarf and hat, scarf and hat. So we're really giving a workout to all these winter clothing items. And then if we go to the Hello book, we're now ready for the poem. You can too. And we're going to have crawling, nibbling, sleeping, a caterpillar, a bunny, a kitten, and a baby emphasized here with the poem. And connecting to the baby who's going to go to sleep with the mommy here, and connecting to the different animals that are pictured. There is a Mighty Minute, number 33, the crawling mouse. And then there is Mighty Minute 11, a bouncing we will go, which connects to what was just read. And then you have many more choices. If you turn to page 11, don't be afraid, but there's many choices here for Mighty Minutes. And the reason is twofold. One reason can be that the children's interest may diminish for one Mighty Minutes, and you have another one, and you have another one. Of course, these are all connected to the Hello book. And then in the future, when you're extending or lengthening the study, there may be Mighty Minutes that you choose not to do. And if you repeat this day, we're on day 4, if you would repeat it and do 2 days of day 4, you would have many choices that you could draw upon for the second day. So that's why there are so many things listed. I'm trying to think of everything you could need now to sustain the interest of the child, everything you would need in the future to lengthen the study. And then we have a Find It using a truck, a block, and a book. And we also have this really cute illustration where there's many more toys and things that the children can point out to you and you can discuss with them. The intentional teaching card, SE06, this is the way we get dressed, also uses the concept of dressing for winter. And then the Mighty Minutes 73, Copy Me, deals with, there is, you sit down with a child and you're going to do some movements, and for the first movement you do it, then you want the child to imitate the movement. And it would be very easy to make these into movements for winter activities outside, or movements that we do when we zip our coat, or we put our hat on, or we put our mittens on, whatever it would be. So this fits too. Let me see. Then we have another Mighty Minute card, Old Uncle Lou, which is Mighty Minute card 23. And with Old Uncle Lou, he's misplaced his shoe. He can't find his shoe. So you're going to help Uncle Lou find it. And of course, you could revamp this a little bit. Uncle Lou could misplace his boot, since today you're talking about winter boots, and you could help the children find Uncle Lou's boots. And then that moves to another Mighty Minute, Hello Toes, because of course, as we said earlier, toes go in boots. You can see how this connects. And then the Mighty Minutes listed at the bottom for transitions, 87 is such a good one. And you can use this no matter what you're going to do, whether they are going to, you've invited them to listen to you read a story, or you're going to do an activity, and you might see children coming to you for the activity because you've invited them and they've chosen to come to you. And then you have, let's go with what you're going to do. Or maybe they're putting their jackets on and their hats, and now let's go is going outside. Or let's go might be going from the carpet to the table for breakfast, lunch, or a snack. So this works very, very well for transitions. And I might add, not just on day 4 of the first at a glance of the winter study. It's a nice transitional card all of the time. So when we think about day 4, then it's the same thing we've been saying. You're going to pull all of your Mighty Minutes cards, all of your intentional teaching cards, and lucky you, some of them you did yesterday and the day before, so you're very familiar with them, but you're going to practice everything. You're going to be practice your readings from your Hello book, and also you're going to be practicing what the guidance tells you to do for the developmental level of the children in your classroom. And these are all things that you need to feel very confident about. And the way that you gain self-confidence with creative curriculum is that you use your planning time to practice. So that's day 4. So we've just finished discussing day 4. That was the day of the winter boots and the day of the little plastic people and the blue water with the cotton ball snowfall. These are all things that you have to plan for. So now we're ready to move to the last day, day 5, in the At a Glance, which will take us back to page 8, and we're in the last column. So we're still working on adding winter clothing and winter clothing accessories to dramatic play, and we've been adding them through the whole week of the study. And now we're going to do sort of a culminating activity today for winter, where the children have explored winter activities, winter clothing, winter boots, more or less for themselves. But today we're going to be working with dressing baby dolls for winter, and then hopefully taking them outside during winter for gross motor. So if you look on page 8, we tell you to put blankets, hats, scarves, jackets, and baby dolls on the table or carpet. And then you tell the children that they are going to be dressing the baby dolls for winter. And this also connects to so many intentional teaching cards that we've done this week and Mighty Minutes. And you will be discussing and describing with them while they explore dressing the babies, making choices about what to put on the dolls, and then determining when they're dressed to be able to go outside. And then when gross motor time comes, they can take the baby dolls all dressed for winter outside. So this will be a huge culminating activity. The intentional teaching card, LL37 might close today because this is a winter day and you wear winter clothes and winter accessories to go outside. This really connects to what we've done. So the activity connected to dressing the baby dolls, and now this card connects to the children being dressed to go outside for the winter. Then that brings us to doing the Snokey Pokey, which is on page 9 in the At a Glance. And this is just an adaptation of doing the Hokey Pokey, but you do the Snokey Pokey with putting your right mitten in, then your left mitten in, or your right boot in, your left boot in, and you can keep going indefinitely, with that, but that's the Snokey Pokey that also connects to all the clothing that we've done so far. Then we'll be moving to page 10 in the At a Glance, and we'll be going into a new Hello book, which is book 16. Remember, I told you there were only a couple books that connected to winter, and that most of the books have a summer look. Well, here we are. Little girl in a short-sleeved top, and her tambourine is a ladybug, but it does have a summer feel to it. And then we also have our book conversation card, number 16, which matches the number 16 Hello book. And on the cover, your children will be interested in her, what she is holding in her hand, what it looks like, what it is. And you may have a tambourine in the room with the musical instruments that you can show them so that they connect that the little girl's holding a tambourine. And then they may want to touch the tambourine as you see the little girl going to tap it with her hand in the cover of the book. That connects immediately to M08, Math 08, which is the Pots and Pans Band, because if this is a one-girl band here going with the tambourine, then your class can become a Pots and Pans Band. And then you also can choose to do P17, Tap and Shake My Tambourine, which again connects to the cover. So those are two different intentional teaching cards, but this is P for physical movement. And then the previous one I showed you, the Pots and Pans Band, is M, math, which means that there are going to be patterns in the sound, be like maybe one tap and a pause, and then two taps and then one. So it's a mathematical pattern, where the P card will be for physical movement, but they both will use musical instruments. Then on the at a glance on page 10 and going over onto page 11, you do have quite a few listed that either connect to music or a beat, or they connect to an insect, a bug, or there may be connections to the next reading that is inside the book. So when you open number 14, let me do that here. The first story is called Baby Bunny in the Storm. And like all stories in the Hello book, 4 pages. And you would be using the book conversation card for the guidance for reading Baby Bunny in the Storm, regardless of the developmental stage of the child. And I would urge you, though, when you select Mighty Minutes and intentional teaching cards to do, I would really suggest that you do that Mighty Minutes number 37, which is, find it here. Maybe it's in my other stack. I did pull it. Mighty Minutes 37. Oh, here it is. I'm sorry, I did have it. The Rain in Me, because it connects to the rainstorm that is in the story. And then also there is another Mighty Minutes that is number 43. It's called Pitter, Platter, Splash, which is about splashing in the rain. So there's another strong connection that you can make to the weather that is in that story. And lastly, there is Mighty Minutes 39, Buzz Like a Bee, for the transitional card. And as the children transition to move to another activity or another area in the room, another segment in the schedule, there are many different choices on the card, different sounds that they can make as they move. But the first one is Buzz Like a Bee, so that's that gives the name to the card. But you do have quite a few to choose from. But remember what I've been telling you so far. They don't take that long to do. Number 2, you will go with the interests of the child. The intentional teaching card or the Mighty Minute card is over when the children lose interest. And then you have many more that you can choose to keep the fun, keep the joy, and keep the learning going in your classroom. They all connect either to winter clothing, to the weather outside, or to the music that's on the cover. And a few do connect to the rain or the rainstorm that's in the story. And once again, when you practice, just like the other 4 days, you'll want to pull all of these intentional teaching cards in Mighty Minutes. You'll want to pull the Hello Highlights, number 14, I believe this is number 16. The Hello Highlight book, number 16, for the book conversation card. And then you really want to read aloud and practice. Decide where you'll be expressive, where you may slow down, where you might whisper, where you might make a noise like an animal or a sound effect, where you might use a stuffed animal in your room as a prop. There's many little micro decisions that you make like that during your planning time that will make it a better experience for the child. And when you're reading from a book in the Winter Storybook Collection, those would be the books that are listed on the very last page of the Winter Study. You want to apply the same strategies to them that we've been applying to the Hello books, because you want to be sure of what you're reading. You want to know where the voice expression will be, where your volume will be louder or softer, where you may whisper, where you may make the voice of an animal, where you may use a prop that's in the classroom to enhance what you're reading in the storybook. And you will develop self-confidence with the book that you're going to read aloud by practicing during your planning time. So with this at a glance that we just did for day 5, you have just planned for a week of the winter study with me. This is your exploration week, but we've done the planning. And I've walked you through individual items and talked about the importance of ordering, gathering, especially gathering, and then practicing. There are no replacements for gathering and practicing. So remember that when you're planning, what you're really planning for is the opportunities for the children to explore winter. You take the lead of the children through observing the interests that they show you, whether it is the Hello book, a tabletop full of winter clothing, looking out the window at winter happening as you look out the window, or an intentional teaching card, or a Mighty Minute. And you'll have no shortage of things to do. I hope I've made that clear. You have so many selections that you can make. You can choose. You also can repeat. You can repeat things that were successful the day before, because there's time to do that. Your repetitions will just take seconds on the clock, maybe a minute or so. Well worth doing. And with this first at a glance for the winter study, the first 5 days, you have a really nice base for the winter study with the children. And next week, the next at a glance, you'll be moving into investigating frozen water with the children. So there will be a lot of ice and ice cubes and different activities involving ice. And at this point, I want to wish you best of luck on the winter study, and I hope that it's a wonderful study for you and your children. Thank you.